Are you looking for some new cultures to introduce to your tabletop role-playing game? Well, today we are continuing the conversation about the world of Aenar, and we are going to be talking about the 9 different cultures that exist within that world. Each one of them was created by Perum, the Thunder Bearer, and they are a little unique based on Slavic, Persian, and Middle Eastern mythology. I'll see you after the intro.
Welcome to Dungeon Brew.
Welcome back, everyone, to Dungeon Brew. Like I said, we are coming here again to talk about the world of Aenar and how you can use it in your campaign. And today, we're going to be talking about the cultures that exist within this world. That is to say, the primary cultures. There are probably secondary and tertiary cultures that exist throughout the world that would probably fit better in a bestiary than they would within what is available to player characters. But these are the 9 specific cultures that your players may choose to be if you were to utilize this within your campaign setting. There are 9 of them, and I am just going to jump right in because there's a lot of information to go through. And what better place to start than to talk about the human race that exists within this world, the Anshedar, who are also called the Northmen. Now, the Anshedar have a long history originating on the island of Kalamar. They're typically known to have light features, light hair, light eyes, in regards to what you may find in the other cultures that we're going to be discussing. And as with most human races that you find in tabletop role-playing games, they're going to share similar features. Average lifespans of humans, average height, weight. They have diverse cultures, they have unique ideologies, they can be very violent because they have short-lived lives, they're prone to engaging in war and being a little bit more reckless than what you would find with other races that have more longevity in regards to their existence within the world. So all those things fit the same mold. Where they differ is that in the modern age, you can actually separate the Anshedar into 4 distinct regions in regards to the kingdoms that exist for humans in the Northlands, in Maharia. And when it comes down to that, there's 4 different options that your players may choose. We actually just recently released a document on our Patreon that breaks down each one of these different types of Anshedar and what the benefits you would have in regards to like their traits or their abilities if you were to choose to play them. So they may choose to be the Lemurians, who are more cagey and cautious. They could be the Ariadnians, who are a little bit more gallant and unflinching. They may choose to be the Catanians, who are more social and exuberant. Or they could choose to be the Tamarians, who are a little bit more conservative and traditional because they are located closer to the homeland. Moving on, let's talk about the Arkono. This is the avian species on Aenar. John and I haven't written much about them in our novels. There's just one book of life and death that includes 2 short stories. One is called Undersung and the other one is A Song and Silver, that include the Arkono and kind of give you a glimpse into their culture. Like I said, they're the avian species. They are birdmen and birdwomen that remain somewhat hidden away in the Missouri jungle in Hamus Mons, where they really only have interaction with the Lilitu and the Uvil that also exist in the south end of the world. Most of the other races of the world don't even believe that they exist, but they are, again, a bird-like species. They stand almost 6 or 7 feet tall. They're very imposing, one of the tallest cultures or races within the world, except for maybe the Ispolini that are just a little bit taller. And they are not really a creature that you want to tamper with. Despite them being somewhat friendly, at least in appearance, and being musical and really into like arts and crafts and things of that variety, they're actually rather deadly. They don't swim, they don't fly, so both of those can be detrimental to them, but they are pretty stealthy and moving through the forests and hunting with their spears. And all those types of things. I think one of the most interesting things about the Arkono, outside of just their overall appearance and approaching them, is that they worship the god Lesh, who is also known as Volos in other areas of the world. And if you have read the books before, Volos meets his demise at an early end. There's a spoiler, which actually brings them a lot of grief as their god is no longer visiting them and they aren't sure what exactly happened to the god of the eternal fallows. Next, we are talking about the Ispolini, based on the Ispolin out of Bulgarian mythology. These six-fingered, red-haired giants reside on tundras more remotely removed from most of the known world, where they inhabit their underground cities that are filled with magma. The Ispolini are one of the first races to be created on the world, as ancient as dragons and Rusaki, otherwise mermaids, and they are kind of carrying the knowledge of Aenar over all. They are also known to battle off demons that arise from the netherworld, coming out of Baba Yaga, and threaten Aenar over all. They have access, of course, to great weapons and armor. Even in their trade with the Uvil, they're able to acquire these if they're not building them themselves. I think the thing, though, that I like most about the Ispolini, outside of being just natural aggressors, the nemesis of dragons, is that they are very intelligent. Unlike other giant races that I've seen in other tabletop role-playing games, the Ispolini are the carriers of wisdom, of knowledge. They're very intellectual. They're managed by a governance, a council that makes the laws for their people. And it's just a really interesting thing to engage with them and have these conversations with them in the world because of all the wisdom that they bring to the table. Fourth on the list is the Kras. If you've read Thrice Nine Legends in any capacity, you're probably familiar with this species because the main character of the Calendar series is a Kras. This comes out of Slavic mythology, but I've taken some creative liberties with it. The Kras are a crimson-skinned creature that is demonic in appearance, with sharp ears, a sharp nose, thin skin, and bulbous eyes. They, for a long time period, were enslaved by the Anshedar and later on the Highborn, but before that time period, they were known to dig in the mountains on Kalamar, where they would look for shiny things in any capacity. In recent times, they have since found their freedom from their enslavement and their subjugation, but they still are pretty reserved and cautious of any other species that exist within Aenar. A lot of folks actually think them to be extinct, but they are still very much around and alive. They actually live to be several centuries old, so they oftentimes can be called upon as individuals who just kind of have this basic history of the world, the species within it, or the races, and the happenings, whether it be wars that have taken place or dynasties that have come and gone, but they very much have all that knowledge in their head, kind of like the Ispolini. Next on our list is the Lilitu, which are the ant people, and they have an alien-esque look about them. They're probably the largest civilization easily within the known world, stretching from the south all the way to the north in cities that pepper along the coast where they engage in trade. They originated in the south in Haemus Mons, but their wealth is now, and their expanse is attributed to their disciplined caste society. There are specific names for each one of their castes, but essentially at birth, you are told what your role within the society is, and you are given a color to don that will tell everyone else what your role is in society. If you are wearing white, you're either the queen or you're one of the religious officials. If you're wearing the red, you're part of the Ruhira, which means that you're a warrior or a guardsman or a mercenary of some sort. If you're wearing blue, then you're going to be a merchant or a tradesman or a skilled craftsman. If you are wearing the yellow, then you are going to be a commoner of sorts. One of the biggest insults in the society is to have to don the black, which means that you have been sentenced or you have been somehow removed or marked as an outcast within the society, or a prisoner, or an untouchable in some way. And this is something that you certainly don't want to have happen. There is a different religious belief among the Lilitu, where they see the world as being created by Anu and Lilith, and they were birthed from this, hence the name. But Lilith, in the grander scheme of the world, is known as Marhina, the goddess of death. Number 6 on our list is the Stuhia, which I might be most familiar with as it was the central culture in the Blood of Dragons series, as well as the culture we highlighted in our Thrice Nine Legends gameplay here on Dungeon Brew called the Ninth Ascension. The Stuhians are based off of Serbian folklore of the dragon men, and in Thrice Nine Legends or on Aenar, they are known to be the race of individuals who are able to wield Kaldastavo, the magic that helped shape Aenar itself by Cowan the Deathless, and were once held by the Old Dark that reigned on Aenar before Cowan came and placed it into order. Those 8 cruxes of magic are, of course, the elemental magics of sea, sky, stone, and fire, as well as the entropic magics of sacred, primal, profane, and void. The Stuhians are ageless in terms of, they just don't age. They don't age beyond puberty unless they are casting their magic, which means that they essentially don't die unless they bring themselves to death by casting too much of the power within them, or they, by some chance, catch disease that can't be healed by somebody that's wielding sacred magic, or they die in battle. For the most part, the Stuhians look like the Anshedar in height and visible appearance outside of their flaming red hair and their piercing eyes that can be either blue or green. They don't venture far from their city of Leirhain in the west, outside of those that were exiled from the city many years ago because of their ability to tap into profane magic and a disagreement in where their magic came from and what gods they worshipped. Now let's talk about the Svet, the centaurs, the barbaric, cannibalistic centaurs who roamed across Maharia's hills and grasslands before the invasion of the Anshedar. Like the Kras, the Svet were at one point enslaved by the Anshedar before being able to have their lands granted back to them, or at least a piece of their lands, which they now own in the modern world. But they have a long, bloodied history of warfare and violence that cannot be forgotten and has not left them at their core. In fact, before the Anshedar invaded Maharia, the Svet were known to fight against the Vucari, which were the werewolves that had come down from the far reaches of the north where the Vucari had been cursed and were unable to shapeshift out of this horrendous werewolf form. But that's a story for another time. The Svet are actually based on old Slavic tales of barbaric, violent centaurs who would persecute Christians and drive them back when they were coming into the lands and stealing away the belief systems of the Slavic people. And these Svet are no different in terms of that violent, bloodthirsty approach to those that would come in and steal away their belief systems. The Svet worshiped the Ruhan, or the god of war in the greater world. He is known as Svathavet the Red, where he has 4 faces and he's able to look in every direction in order to see what danger is coming and to watch all corners of the world. They're a really fun race, and I hope that you're able to include these within your own gaming world. Coming in at number 8 are the Uvil, blue-skinned desert-dwelling warriors that march in ranks with a force that is unparalleled by most other cultures within the world of Aenar. They wield steel, the likes that have not been seen by most cultures, while they've done some trade with the Lilitu as well as the Ispolini. When it comes to the Anshedar, they were probably one of the first real enemies that came about that sent the humans running with their tails between their legs. The Uvil are an ancient culture that worship ancestors and revere the dead at all costs. To speak ill of the dead in any way is just blasphemy, and it will probably cost you your head. They wear a coin around their neck in which they have on them at all times, and they hurriedly swallow at the point of death in hopes of keeping themselves from turning into the unfathomable, horrific Preda that will then prey on the living and roam the lands for their entire existence in the afterlife, instead of having the ability to pass over to Thrice 10 Kingdom. The Uvil actually have ruins that scatter throughout Maharia in the north, where they had listened to the guidance of their ancestors and had seen the signs in the stars to make advancements when the Svet still ruled over in a lot of Maharia, before retreating back to their southern mountains once more. This race overall is very enigmatic in nature, and they have a lot of semblances to like Aztec and Incan cultures in regards to how they engage with one another and how they engage with other cultures. Last but not least are the Vucari, or the skin switchers, who originated on the island of Rian in the far reaches of the north near Anarfell. They are ruled by the Kagan, who teaches them to become wardens of the ash tree, protectors of the prison that hold the old dark, and keep the world of Aenar in consistent balance and harmony. They would tell you that they derive their power from Vlolos, the protector of the eternal fallows, who gives them the ability to shift into any known creature or animal in existence within the world, and it's all based on their bloodlines. Those with the strongest bloodlines are able to turn into a Bais, otherwise known as a Minotaur, that has great strength and prowess in battle that allows them to battle against those who would do harm to the known world. Their greatest enemy is the Reds, or the Stuhians, who they've been waging war against in a blood feud for centuries. For many, the Vucari are feared, so they do their best to blend into society, but as they are ageless, like the Stuhians, they have to constantly be moving about so that nobody notices that they are not like everybody else. And that is what I have for you today in terms of the 9 cultures. I actually have probably a good dozen or more pages on each one of these cultures in my notes. I have put more together on our Patreon to kind of list out some of the specifics and to give you some gaming ideas about how you might incorporate them into your campaign that you are currently running. So if you run over to Patreon, you can check that out for free. I hope that this has been entertaining for you. I certainly love talking about this. So please stay tuned as we continue to make some videos on Thrice Nine Legends, Aenar, and create more tools for Game Masters. I'll see you all next time on Dungeon Brew.
Dungeon